Shalom everyone, we are studying this time Parashat Vayitchanan, the second parasha of the book of Deuteronomy, Dvarim, and this is starting in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 3, verse 23. Vayitchanan el Adonai ba'et ha'ih lemor. And this is like, we have to remember the whole book of Dvarim is an amazing poetry in Hebrew, which is the words, the last speech of Moses before he is going up to God. And again, this parasha is very, very powerful, with the meaning very. It's a very just to read it, to learn it, contemplate on the verses. Many of them became like important verses in daily life, whoever speaks Hebrew. And we learn a few things from this parasha. First of all, the first word Vayitchanan means an I implored. And the word Vayitchanan in Gematria, numerical value, is 515, which is also tefillah, a prayer. And also the legend is saying that Moses prayed 515 times to God in order to let him enter the promised land. Although, in a simple explanation, God says no. But still, so why did you pray? And we have an amazing concept over here, the concept of prayer. So this is very, very important for the understanding of the concept of prayer. And we have that concept is the beginning of the parasha. And the Zohar itself talks to us a lot about the importance of the prayer. We'll come to it. The next very important issue in this parasha, or there are many issues, but the very important issue is the Mount Sinai revelation and what is known by mistake as the 10 Commandments. In Hebrew, it never said 10 Commandments, because we are here in this world, as we learned last week, to learn how to build the image of God within us, and that means God never takes commandments, and so humans cannot be taking commandments, being enslaved, and at the same time feeling that they reach their calling. So that's why in the Hebrew it's called Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 sayings or 10 utterances. So the whole explanation, Moses is basically reminding the Israelites the background of the Exodus, Mount Sinai revelation, and again he repeats the 10 utterances to everybody, and also the story behind it, and the feeling, the amazing experience of Mount Sinai revelation. The third very important pillar of this parasha, you can find it in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. The prayer Shema Yisrael, which is the most important prayer of the whole concept of prayer in Judaism, and we'll explain what does it mean. And another thing that is very important, we'll see how it's all connected. Parashat Vayitchanan is always being read in Shabbat Nachamu, which is the Shabbat after the 9th of Av. Shabbat Nachamu, it means Shabbat of the consolation, which means going through the trauma, while the 9th of Av is the symbol of trauma, all the traumas that every human being can go through, which means trauma means losing everything, losing whatever is important to a person, which is is physical safety, is a community, family, death, all of that, and loss of everything that normal life is about, the loss of all of it. This is the ninth of Av, which this week is going to be commemorated Wednesday night and Thursday. So because Parashat Vayitchanan is always being read together with the ninth of Av, and after it's the Shabbat of Parashat Vayitchanan is always the Shabbat following the ninth of Av. So Nachamu means consolation, which means with today's modern psychological definition, the secret of treating of post-traumatic problems is in Parashat Vayitchanan, which means what is the real meaning of consolation? How do you really achieve consolation while human beings are people that, you can't, since you're a child, you're born, just the birth is a trauma, coming out of the womb through a very uncomfortable event, which is called birth. That's a trauma. After that, being like separated from your mother, that you live within your mother, and suddenly you're not next to her even, could be even in the next room, and then you have to scream so your mother will come and you'll have the touch again. That's another trauma. And more. And life without the trauma is not life. It's like no human being can experience life without the trauma. And although parents are trying to get their children to live a life without any kind of discomfort, sooner or later you come to a place that is called kindergarten or school or a society in which people are not just not nice in the way they don't want to give you everything you want like your parents did, okay? They also can be hostile and very and very negative in a way of trying to take whatever you have or simply just abuse you. So growing up as a human being, you have to face traumas. However, people react differently to traumas. Okay, so this is the main topic of this parasha, and we will see how it's all connected. The first thing is about the concept of a prayer, while the concept of a prayer is so important because the concept of the prayer, as we're going to see, is the highest level of a post-traumatic treatment. And let me explain, of course, using the Holy Zohar. So when we start the Zohar Parashat Vayitchanan, and it starts with the words, it's a quote that the Zohar is bringing from the book of Isaiah chapter 38, and the story is a very famous story. I repeat that story many times because it's one of the main pillars and foundations of the Zohar. And the story is like the king Ezekiel was a very righteous king. He was the king of Jerusalem, 8th century BCE, and Jerusalem at that time was facing a huge challenge. The Assyrian Empire was taking control, which means colonial control of the area that is called Israel. And they already took the northern part, the northern kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of the 10 tribes. And now there's no buffer anymore between the kingdom of Judea, that the capital is Jerusalem, and the king is Ezekiel. Around that time, the king Ezekiel is becoming very, very sick, and he's going to die. And the prophet Isaiah, who was a family member with the Chizkiah, coming to the king to his bedroom and is saying, you are going to die because you went against God's orders. And the story was he didn't want to get married. I won't go into it too much. And you're going to die. And then the verse is, ויסב חזקיהו פניו אל הקיר ויתפלל אל השם. And Ezekiel turns himself as the prophet Isaiah goes home. And Ezekiel the prophet, and Ezekiel the Ezekiel the king, turns his face to the wall and he prays, and he repents, and he promises the Creator, I'll do whatever you want me to do without any kind of judgments. The result is that God appears to Isaiah shortly after and tells him, go back to the king, tell him that he's going to live, that the Jerusalem is protected and is going to be safe, and surely history will tell us the Assyrians did not take over the kingdom of Judah, of Judea, and the kingdom of Judea went on a few centuries later till the Babylonians destroyed Judea in the 9th day of Av, year 586 BCE. Okay, so what do we learn from the story of Ezekiel, the king? And the Zohar says like this, בואו ראה כמה חזק כוח התורה. כמה הוא חילת הקיפה דאורייתא וכמה הוא הילאה קולה, דכל מן דשתדל באורייתא לדחיל מילאי ותתאי, ולדחיל מהרהורים בישים דעלמא בגין דיהו אחיד באילנה דחיי, ואכיל מיני בכל יומה. Come and see how strong is the power of the Torah and how divine and supreme the Torah is above all. Because whoever is occupying himself in the Torah does not have to be afraid not from the upper worlds and not from threats from the physical world. And he's not afraid of any evil issues of this physical world because he is connected, holding on to the tree of life and feeds from that tree of life daily. We'll see this concept is very important for this parasha, and I'll show you why. כי התורה מלמדת על האדם ללכת בדרך האמת. The Torah teaches the person to go in the way of truth, and the Torah is teaching the person how to reconnect to his master. So, and listen carefully, this is the punchline, ואפילו מוות נגזר עליו, הכל מתבטל ומסתלק ממנו. Even there is already a death decree upon the person can remove that decree and everything will be cancelled and that the judgment will be gone and will not dwell upon the person anymore. ועל כן, therefore, צריך לעסוק בתורה יומם ולילה. A person needs to be occupying himself with the Torah, which means, does that mean I have to go around with a book all day long? In a way, yes, but really not, because it's not just the book, it's the way we interpret reality, the way we perceive reality, the way we look at things. The Torah is teaching us the ability to process whatever is happening to us, because as many people who learn about the power of the mind learn also, and it's not just the Zohar, but now a lot of people are talking about it, religious and not religious, you don't have control over what's happening to you, but you do have control over how to react to it, which means the more you put your effort in training yourself to be fit. What does it mean to be fit? To be able to see everything that's happening to you in a positive way. When we control our reaction, that way will determine how do we experience life. That will determine the way life treats us. And why is that important? Because whoever learns some modern science knows about that every scientific experiment must go by the rule of double blind. Why? Double blind means that the experiment is being done by the technician and not by the scientist who created the idea of the experiment. And also I'm just making it very shallow, but the technician making the experiments does not know which part is the control, which part is the experiment, or has no idea what is the theory that is being checked. Why? Because a human consciousness involved in the experiment has an effect on the results. That means, A, no one is objective. Every person has expectations. These expectations has an effect on everything we do, and that means if our attitude has an effect over stuff we don't even touch physically, why don't we take responsibility by having a positive attitude towards everything, and by having that positive attitude, which means controlling our reaction. And that is basically the main idea of real true spirituality. Yes, we do have reactions to everything. The reaction can be anger, upset, jealousy, animosity, abuse, victimization, any kind of, we're humans and we are busy being emotional daily, even though we're trying to hide it. Now, being a real spiritual person means that we acknowledge the reaction. We understand the reaction. We understand the negative reaction. We are aware of the negative reaction. However, we choose to ascend above the reaction and to connect to what we really want, which is enlightenment. Every person has one wish and one desire. We can try to deny it, but that's the desire, the inner wish of every human being. We want to feel good. We need to feel enlightened and fulfilled. Okay? That's what we want. Nobody really wants to be angry. Nobody really wants to feel a victim. Nobody really wants to feel abused or persecuted. No one. Deep inside, in our true self, we want to be connected to the Creator. Now, and to be fulfilled with His bliss, because the Creator is giving only bliss. One of the major concepts in monotheism, that you can find it everywhere in the books of the Hebrew Bible, in the Talmud, Mishnah, the Talmud, the Zohar. Evil does not come from above. Evil comes from below. From above, the Creator is giving only positivity. When we react in a negative way, we block that positivity, that bliss from flowing into our lives. How do we change our lives? How do we really reach our calling, which is to be divine creatures? Is when we are aware, when we accept the idea that we have a dark side, and we take the responsibility to be aware of that part of our personality, and every time we realize it's awakening, to shut it down and to look at it as a reminder to connect to enlightenment and to divine consciousness. How do we do it? That's a daily exercise that you're never free of that till the day you leave this world. How do you exercise it? You study the Torah. What is the purpose of the study of the Torah? There's only one purpose. And the purpose is, as the Creator is teaching us, I created the evil inclination, but I created the remedy, which is the Torah. When you study the Torah, you don't study because you want to be a wise person. You study the Torah because this is your remedy to exercise our will to refocus, which means something happens and that awakens the dark side. It could be greed, could be lust, could be anger, victimization, any kind of negative, selfish reaction. However, we have to be aware of it, disassociate ourselves from that reaction, and overcome, ascend to enlightenment. This is the real work of every human being. Our lives will never be up the hill unless we recognize that this is our job. No one can do it for us the same way, and no one can make you successful, only yourself. No one can make you happy, only yourself. How is that accomplished? Again, by this formula of overcoming, that we overcome the dark side, which is also called the snake side of our personality, and we reconnect to God's light. Now, how do we do that? First thing is, exercising daily, hourly. Prayer is the major mean of overcoming negativity till we make the connection. It's like dialing to the Creator. What if you dial and you don't get a line? You redial, and you redial again and again till you get the connection. This is the most important thing. And the moment you do that, you can change your destiny. And as we read over here, we can change even from life to death. This is the power of the spiritual transformation, in which a prayer is a major tool. Now, so the question is, so how come Moses, that prayed so much, did not get what he wanted? He wanted to reach the Holy Land. And God's answers, according to the story, no, and do not ask anymore in that question. However, the other sages are not exactly sure that that's God's answer from what it says over here. So yes, Moses is praying and asking to come into the promised land, and he's telling us in verse 26, chapter 3 in Deuteronomy, Vayomer Adonai Elai, and God says to me, Rav lach al tosef daber elai od badavar hazeh. What's God's answer is, do not talk to me about this thing anymore. But before he says Rav lach, two words, Rav lach. That's his first answer, first part of the answer. What does it mean, Rav lach? Rav means a lot. Lach means to you. Hebrew, like, what does it mean? So the commentators are trying to explain it to us. So we have Rashi, which is our main authority. Rashi, the great sage, is the biggest commentator of the whole Hebrew Bible and the Talmud. And Rashi says a few things. One of them, usually when he wants to bring the opinion of the Zohar, and in his time, 11th century, you could not speak about it. So usually it says and something else, another explanation. Here it says something else, דבר אחר, רב לך הרבה מזה שמור לך, רב טוב הצפון לך. There's a lot waiting for you, don't worry. Which means, what does it mean רב לך? So let us explain. I'll start with explanation of Rabbi Ashlag. Rabbi Ashlag, the great commentator of the Zohar, the founder of a modern Kabbalah movement. And Rabbi Ashlag is saying, let's say somebody prays to God for many years. He prays, some people pray for finding a spouse, some people praying for a child, some people praying for sustenance, some people pray for, there's many things you're praying for. Wants to get a certain job, certain career. People pray for a lot of things, but people pray. And what if the person prays and he did not get his wish fulfilled? So he prayed in vain. And Rabbi Ashlag says we have to understand that we have to discern between the aspects of the wish. Every wish a human has, most of the wishes have two aspects. One aspect, we want something worldly, okay? Health or sustenance, we just made a list, and you can add to that list as much as you want. Because there's nothing that people don't pray for, like they want this and they want that, and so on. But is that the real thing that a human soul is hungry for? What a human soul is hungry for more than anything else is the connection to God. Every time you pray to God, genuinely, you're connecting to God. And that's your real request is being granted. Being closer and more connected to God. Which means, even though it looks like you didn't get what you want, let's say in this story, Moses wants to enter the Holy Land. So, what the Zohar is explaining to us, God is telling to Moses, what else can I give you? You got everything already. You want the physical thing of being physically in the Holy Land? What for? You're Moses, right? It's not because you want to visit a certain location. Why did Moses want to enter the Holy Land? Because he wanted to reach closer to God. And what's God's answer? You have enough. That's another meaning of Ravlach. You have enough. You have enough. Your connection to the divine has reached the peak. There's nothing higher that you can expect to. So, what do we understand over here? That basically, through the prayer, we can achieve beyond our dreams. Because, let us explain. When we have a lack, what is that we're really lacking? Most people today are trained in our very, very materialistic society. We need money, we need health, we need all kinds of stuff that we can buy because we are being brainwashed since we are little kids, that whatever you need, you can buy, and especially today online or okay, I think you got the message. But is that what we really want? Because whatever you cannot take with you to the next world is not really yours. It's just a loaner. You can't take, let's say you acquired huge amount of real estate. You have houses, you have buildings, you have factories, you have a lot of real estate, you have like a huge amount. Can you take it with you to the next world? No. Does that mean that it's really yours? It's really there for a limited time. So it's not really yours. Remember the story of Pharaoh. He thought he can take it with him to the next world. So you can't even imagine the size of the wealth of his kingdom that he put in building a pyramid, his tomb. And he took with him to his grave, treasures, pets. You can't even think about where is Pharaoh today? In the museum, in the traveling show, as a public property, which means, what a joke. So what is that you really can take with you? Those moments of enlightenment in which you overcame darkness, you overcame illusion, you overcame lack and pain, and you basically ascended to reconnect yourself with the Creator. This is the only key for real, true, lasting fulfillment. All the rest basically will cause you a trauma. Why? Some people pray for beauty. How long can that stay? Let's say you live till 120. So you achieve beauty through exercises and treatment and stuff like this. How long would that stay? Okay. What about as we said, real estate, money? You can't take it with you. What about the job? Sooner or later you'll have to retire. Okay. So everything that we think is really a cause for our fulfillment in our materialistic reality, the moment we are bred to trust that, that's how you build up the trauma, because sooner or later that will be gone. This is just like coming and going. However, and relationships with people also. It starts with pets and then people. No one lives forever and nobody stays connected forever. You can't build on that. So what can you build on really? And that's a real immunization against trauma. Our connection to the endless light of the Creator. How much light? Endless light. Is there enough for everybody? Of course there's enough for everybody. Which means if somebody gets a lot of it, it doesn't mean that there's little left for me. There's always enough for everyone. Can you imagine how being materialistic, you're just creating a buildup for trauma? Sooner or later, something will be gone. And another, and another. You can't build on that. So, when we learn that our prayer, that our connection, our spiritual connection to enlightenment is the real biggest asset that is ours, and no one can take it away from us, because that stays even after 120. That stays for the next lifetimes. That's why you see some people are born rich than others. Some people are simply more spiritual from birth, simply less reactive, less hysterical. They tend more to be able to connect to godliness and less get traumatized by the loss of physical things, of physical status. And some people are more traumatized. This is according to the amount of assets that we really gain in this world. Now, so the more we train ourselves to be connected to the spiritual well-being and to the spiritual world, the more we immunize ourselves against the pain and the traumas of this world. Now, this is now when we're coming to another part of the Zohar, and there's an amazing part over there that says, many beautiful parts, but I want to choose only one part. Okay, verse 10 in the Zohar of Parashat Vayetchanan, פירוש הסולם. בואו ראה, מי שעומד בתפילה צריך ליישר רגליו וכבר העמידו. Whoever is standing in prayer must be standing with straight feet close to each other. Why? Because it's like an angel that has only one foot. What does it mean? It doesn't have the choice between right and left. During the prayer, we are just becoming like angels. But there's one thing I have to add. In the Shulchan Aruch, the book, the most important book of Jewish laws, that was written by Rabbi Yosef Karo, who is buried in Tzfat. We're talking about one of the biggest creations in Jewish law that was written and printed in the 16th century. Okay, and what does it say over there, that when you start praying the main part of the prayer, which is called the silent prayer, you take 3 steps backwards, which means you're leaving the physical dimension, and then you make 3 steps forward. 1 step if you're outside of Israel, 1 step to Israel, the 2nd step to Jerusalem, and the 3rd step into the Holy of Holies. But just a second, wasn't the Holy of Holies destroyed by Titus the Roman almost 2,000 years ago in the year 70? And Rabbi Isaac Luria, the reason that today's anniversary, that anniversary, is teaching us an amazing idea. He's teaching us from the Talmud that when the sages that lived at that day and witnessed how the temple goes on fire, they celebrated. And how could they celebrate? To make the story short, they realized with their huge wisdom and holiness that what's burned is only the physical appearance of the temple. But we know that everything has a physical appearance, physical dimension, but most of the thing is spiritual. And the spiritual temple is still standing till this day. And they celebrated because the temple was not really destroyed. What was destroyed is that part that everybody can see. But the part that only very few can see is still standing there forever. And that's why the Shulchan Aruch of Rabbi Yosef Karo his son was married to his daughter. He was married. One of his children was married to one of Rabbi Zakuria's children. Okay, I just forgot who was to whom. It doesn't matter. But they knew each other, and which means they had a debate together. And we know it's the same school they're talking about. You every day, if you pray the 3 daily prayers, where are you supposed, according to the Shulchan Aruch, to pray? You're supposed to pray in the Holy of Holies. But the Holy of Holies, everybody knows, has been destroyed by Titus and the Romans. Yes, only the physical part. And that's why he says, V'kiblu nechama. They received consolation. What does it mean? When is that you can really receive consolation? When you can teach yourself to connect to the spiritual dimension. In that dimension, there's no loss. The law of preservation of energy stays only in the spiritual realm. In the physical realm, every human being born young, and maybe most people are born healthy, but that does not stay forever. You have aging, you have anxieties of aging, you have anxieties of losing control over your body, over your assets, over your brain. But whatever spirituality you tap into and you connect to, and how do you achieve that? When you turn from the negativity and you ascend to positivity. Okay, so let's continue, because I didn't finish with that issue. When you pray, you're praying at the Holy of Holies. And you have to cover, and the person has to cover his head, like someone who's standing in front of the king. And you have to cover the eyes, כדי שלא יסתכל בשכינה, not to look at the holy presence, the Shekhinah. And we learned, whoever opens his eyes in the middle of the prayer, מי שפותח את עיניו בתפילה, או שאינו משפיל עיניו לארץ, or, not everybody, there are a lot of Kabbalists who say that you better read from the text, so you look down, you don't look forward during the prayer of Amidah, the silent prayer. Then the angel of death takes over soon for that person. And you cannot see, לא יסתכל באור שכינה, ולא ימות בנשיקה, מי שמזלזל בשכינה הוא מזלזל. Let me just skip and say, אתה אומר שמי מסתכל בשכינה בשעה שהוא מתפלל, you are saying that whoever is looking at the Shekhinah while praying, ואיך יכול להסתכל בשכינה? How can you look at the Shekhinah? You're a human being, flesh and blood. הוא משיב and he answers, אלא לדעת, you have to know, אשר ודאי השכינה עומדת לפניו, for sure, the Shekhinah is in front of you. You're standing in the Holy of Holies and you're facing the Shekhinah. And that's why you should not look forward in the middle of the prayer, because the Shekhinah is there, which means what determines if the Shekhinah is there or not? Your consciousness. When you are sure that you are in the Holy of Holies and you're standing in front of the Shekhinah, you are in the Holy of Holies, you're standing in front of the Shekhinah. Somebody says, this is nonsense. The temple was destroyed in the year 70. Since then, there's no temple over there. There's only a Muslim shrine or something like this. What are you talking about? And I'm saying, but I've been there this morning. You can't argue with me. I felt the Shekhinah. I was praying. While I was praying, you can't argue with me about that, because it's all about certainty. The uncertainty principle in quantum physics says you cannot really be objective. That's what it means. You cannot be certain about all the things, but you can be certain that when you measure reality, the way you measured it, that's the way you made it be. Which means if you measure reality with faith, love, and positivity, that's how reality is going to become. And that was the consolation. Those sages witnessing the destruction of the temple, but they were singing, happy, it says, happy, they had consolation. How could you have consolation watching the temple going on fire and knowing that thousands of years later it's still going to be without it? No, they just saw it that now that the real part, the non-physical part of the temple is standing there forever. No one can abuse it. No one can trade it for money. No, because only the people who really wants to face the Shekhinah daily will be able to experience, to be present in the Holy of Holies every time they pray. Experiencing that, understanding that, that's the biggest gift a human being can give to himself, herself, because that's eternal bliss, richness, true fulfillment that he's saying. So, that's one thing. The Arizal continues and explaining, this is his day, that Moses is speaking about trying to explain another verse, that's the beginning of the verse we just read, verse 26, ויתעבר אדוני בי למענכם. Again, our mind says, it's again a game of words. The mind says, God was upset about me because of you. Okay? So it's like Moses is bitterly blaming the Israelites that because of you I didn't go to the Holy Land. But that's, if you really go into the meaning of every word the Arizal is saying, that's not what it says. What it says over there, "Vayit'aber Adonai bi le'ma'anchem." The reason is saying something very important. On Mount Sinai, the Israelites already cleansed the sin of Adam. What was the sin of Adam? When Eve was listening to the snake, and the snake is the dark side. This is the source of every aspect of darkness, illusion, disconnection from God. Okay? That's what the snake means. Do you really think, we are grown up? We're not little kids in school, in kindergarten anymore. If we do not reassess the Bible stories, it's very not intelligent. We learn about the Garden of Eden, that Adam and Eve were walking there naked, okay, in a beautiful, beautiful garden full of fruits. But if you read carefully, there are only two trees mentioned in the Garden of Eden, which are the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. Can you buy a tree like this in the nursery? Of course not. The tree of life and tree of knowledge, these are very abstract ideas. So when you realize that Adam and Eve also, they had there a snake that was talking. Did you ever meet a talking snake? Okay? So we understand that the Garden of Eden was a different dimension before there was physical dimension, and the Zohar continues to teach us about it and saying that only after the sin, that's verse 33 in the Zohar of this parasha, only after the sin, God gave Adam and Eve skin, dresses, which means skin garments. What does it mean? That before the sin, we had no skin. Adam and Eve had only light appearance. There was no, what is the skin? The skin is that part that is the intermediate with the world outside. So we experience the world in a physical dimension because of our skin. We feel, we sense heat, cold, sound, it's all about the senses that are based on the skin. Before the sin, Adam and Eve did not have any limitation of the five senses. Therefore, it is written very clearly that they could see, that you could see this everywhere in the Talmud and in the Zohar, they could see the divine light, so they could see everything, the whole spiritual universe, without the limitation that what the Zohar is saying. After the sin, we can see only in the form of the physical elusive reality, and we are confined to that perception. But that's not what real reality is about. Now, the snake is the power of death. And the Arizal is saying because of the Erev Rav, who are the Erev Rav? The Erev Rav were really Jewish souls that also came to Egypt. However, they did not go through the slavery. They were the wizards of Pharaoh. They were the elite of the wizardry of Egypt. They had high souls, but since they did not go through the slavery of the iron furnace of Egypt, their souls were not refined enough. God told Moses, do not take them out of Egypt. Not now, later. Moses, who knew that they have a holy soul in the core level, decided that they should be taken out of Egypt to shorten the process. So Rabbi Isaac is saying, the problem is that the Erev Rav, they misled the Israelites. They are the ones who created the golden calf. They are the ones who turned the process back. Mount Sinai revelation was fixing, correcting the snake of the sin of Adam. There was already immortality in the world. There was already end to any suffering that was supposed to expand to all of humanity. But the Erev Rav misled the nation and pulled them after their own witchcraft. What was the result? The world fell back into death, suffering, traumas, and materialism. Now, the Erev Rav continue, the Arizali say, they continue to incarnate together with the Israelites. And now, he says, Ve'ata rov hador mehem. I'm reading from the Sefer Alikutim about Parashat Vayetchanan. Most of the generation of the Israelites are Erev Rav. How do you know? Materialism, hatred. You don't see the so much of real, true spirituality. It's more politics, rushing after power. There's no real direction towards spirituality, and that misleads the whole nation. And therefore, what Moses is saying, because of that, he speaks to the Erev. I'll have to come every generation in somehow in incarnation in order to lead the people through the right direction. And we know who was Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who is the main author of the Zohar, he was sparks of the soul of Moses. Who was Rabbi Zakloria? Same thing. Generation after generation, like Moses is telling us, I'll have to come in a way, in pregnancy, I have to come to this world to basically make sure that those people that I took before time out of Egypt, they are not going to change the direction of history to a place of total darkness. So that's one of the main amazing teachings of the Arizal. So every generation you have that fight between materialism, power, and stuff like this, and real, true spirituality. And the same thing, this battle is happening inside each one of us. So, according to the Arizal, is the 9th of Av a bad day or a good day? That depends on us. We can connect to the calamity, to the trauma, and say, oh, so many terrible things happened on the 9th of Av. And I know before I was connected to Kabbalah, the 9th of Av aroused in me the stories, the movies, the programs, the readings. And in Israel, the nation is very obsessed with it. It's everywhere on TV, radio. It's all about discussing the calamities and the destruction. And you feel so helpless and hopeless because, you're so small and these calamities repeat themselves. And you lose people. It's a huge calamities of loss, generation after generation, millennium after millennium. So how can I really be safe? Nobody has any safe, real, true safety unless you connect to the spiritual aspect of the 9th of Av. Yes, the snake is Nachash. But we know every Hebrew word is also a number. And Nachash is 358, which is also the number for the word Mashiach, the Messiah. Which means when we overcome that elusive consciousness that we are so dependent on the physicality, on materialism for happiness, then we can reveal the true dimension of Mashiach. And the true dimension of Mashiach is really connecting to the true dimension of reality, which is the human soul and the godly enlightenment that is awaiting each one of us. And our journey is about revealing that spirituality in everything that we go through. And that is the healing of consolation, realizing, yes, I lost A, B, C, D. I was hurt this way or another. But through the prayer, through the learning, through my mind, through overcoming the loss and connecting to the endless light of the Creator that is always there waiting to shine into each one of us, when I realized that there was no loss, I only can lose physical stuff, but the real content is what we can really treasure forever. That's why it's called Or Haganuz, the treasured light. You can treasure it forever, and no one can take that away from you. So when we're talking now, we can understand why the Mount Sinai revelation is being spoken about over here, because we are talking about Mount Sinai revelation was the moment humanity achieved a momentarily immortality, which means the correction of the sin of Adam. We fell back, but that impression is still here. Where? What was given on Mount Sinai? The Torah. So we can hold on to the Torah daily, and that means we can hold on to the tree of life daily, and that will save us from all those traumas that life is so full of them. Also, we have over here in this parasha the Shema Israel. As we said before, Shema Israel is in Parashat Vayitchanan. What's so important in the Shema Israel? Parashat Vayitchanan, chapter 6, verse 4. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, God is our Lord, God is one. Terrible translation, because, English was not made for that purpose. When we are talking about that, is the name of God, Hashem, the name of mercy, unconditional love, and there's a name of God, Elohim, which is the name of judgment. And when we say it's all one, we really mean that the whole universe is one, that the unity of God is everywhere. There's nothing but God. And that means that all of humanity, we're still pieces of Adam. We are still one, although we are so confused that we fight each other. Like, what does it... Today we understand that most of diseases are autoimmune. What does it mean, an autoimmune disease? That one part of the body is fighting another part of the same body. You don't need germs, bacteria, viruses. You can do it well by yourself. That's what humanity is about. It's an autoimmune disease of the different cells of the body of Adam and Eve. We're all part of one. So every day when we say the Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, and we really accept the idea that we are all one, and by being one, we are also one with the Creator. In that moment, we heal humanity a little bit more. We get closer to heal that broken vessels and bring it again to oneness, which is the consciousness of Mashiach. So that's another form of prayer. And of course, we have so many more secrets in this parasha, but our time is too short. And good luck to everybody with a journey of really connecting above the pain, the suffering, the darkness, the misery. It's all there to give us and grant us the opportunity to reach the light on our own, to reach the unity of the universe on our own, and to create with our own mind and heart, to create that union all over again. But now it's going to be really ours. Thank you so much.